You were never meant to feel powerless. They just made sure you forgot who you are. From the very beginning, the world trained you to believe your power lived outside of you, in gods, governments, systems, screens. They taught you to worship the light, but never to realize that it was burning inside your own chest the entire time. But not all knowledge was erased. Hidden beneath centuries of silence, buried in old languages and locked behind symbols, exists a series of teachings that were never meant for the masses. 35 fragments of cosmic truth preserved in the Corpus Hermeticum. These are not religious instructions. They are spiritual weapons, initiations, keys to a door most people don't even know exists. And now that door is opening. The illusion of limitation is cracking. The universe was never something outside of you. It lives through you. And once you understand what these teachings truly mean, nothing in your life will ever look the same again. You were born into a system that doesn't want you to know who you are. Not truly. It wants you efficient, not awakened. Obedient, not sovereign. From the first breath, it wrapped you in a narrative designed to make you forget your place in the cosmos. A narrative that says you're small, fragile, temporary, a product of chance floating through a dead universe. But what if none of that is true? What if you were never meant to feel this lost, disconnected, and hollow? What if you were designed to remember something ancient? The system begins with schooling, but its reach is deeper than curriculum. It teaches you to sit still, ask for permission, repeat instead of think, absorb instead of question. It doesn't just train your body, it conditions your mind to depend on authority. By the time you're old enough to choose for yourself, you've already absorbed the script. Reality becomes something you accept, not shape. And the most dangerous part, you don't even realize it's happening. Even as a child, you were more than they told you. You felt it, didn't you? That unexplainable pull towards something higher, deeper, something words couldn't touch. A spark in your chest. A sense that life was more than chores and textbooks and polite conversations, but the noise drowned it out. The world told you to grow up, to be realistic, to trust only what can be measured. And slowly, that cosmic memory inside you began to dim. What you weren't told is that the universe isn't random. It's intelligence in motion. It's consciousness folding in on itself, expressing itself, learning through form. You are not outside of that. You are in it, of it. An expression of the one mind, momentarily clothed in flesh. The Corpus Hermeticum calls this truth the foundation of all wisdom, that all things are connected through the same divine source, and that source is alive within you. Hermes Trismegistus wrote not for the elite, but for the ready, for those who could feel the weight of the lie pressing down on them, even when they couldn't name it. He knew that when the soul is hungry for truth, even the smallest whisper becomes a roar. That's why these 35 teachings weren't meant to be memorized. They were meant to awaken. They're a map for the soul, a manual for remembering. Some of the truths buried in these writings are too potent, too confrontational to share openly on platforms like this. That's why we created Insights Academy, a free newsletter where we go deeper into what can't be spoken here. Sign up now through the link in the description, and you'll also receive a free copy of the Kybalion, but only for a limited time. These teachings begin by shattering one illusion, that you are separate from the cosmos. They reveal that you are the microcosm of the macrocosm, that your inner world and the outer universe are mirrors of the same truth. This isn't a metaphor, it's a mechanism. Change your vibration and the reality around you responds. This is the first doorway, and it only opens for those willing to stop believing they are powerless. You were trained to look outward for guidance, to trust institutions over intuition, to seek answers in systems instead of in silence. But Hermetic wisdom flips the direction. It tells you to turn inward, to quiet the noise, to find the hidden flame within you and listen to the voice that's been whispering all along. Not the voice of fear, but the voice of remembrance. The system that raised you has no use for awakened souls. An awakened being can't be controlled. They don't worship titles. They don't seek permission. They walk with an authority that can't be purchased or granted. And that's what makes these teachings dangerous, not because they harm, but because they liberate. To reclaim your cosmic power, you must first understand how it was taken, not through violence, but through distraction, through busyness, through constant noise and artificial urgency. You were never told to pause, to wonder, to seek. And so you forgot the most important truth, that divinity doesn't live in temples or thrones, it lives in you. The first truth of Hermetic wisdom doesn't shout, it echoes. It's hidden in plain sight, wrapped in the rhythm of nature, the symmetry of patterns, the pulse of your own breath. As above, so below. As within, so without. This is not poetry. It's the architecture of reality. A principle so ancient and so powerful, it dismantles the lie of separation in a single phrase. And once you understand it, not just intellectually but experientially, everything changes. You've been taught to see the world as something happening to you, not through you. That the cosmos is out there and you are here. That your inner world is private and small, while the universe is vast and indifferent. But this teaching says otherwise. It says the universe is not only observing you, it is reflecting you. And you are doing the same. You are not a spectator in this play. You are both an actor and an author. Every thought, emotion, and belief you carry echoes into the field of reality and returns as form, experience, and pattern. The same forces that shape galaxies are humming inside your bloodstream. The same geometry found in the spiral of a galaxy lives in the design of your DNA. The laws that govern planetary movement govern the cycles of your life. You are not disconnected from the cosmos. You are a microcosm of it. And the moment you understand that, you realize that changing your internal world is not self-help. It's cosmic engineering. The Hermetic path is not about escaping the world. It's about understanding how it works so deeply that you can finally participate in its unfolding with awareness. Power is no longer about dominance or control. It becomes alignment, resonance, harmony. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions mirror the order of the universe, you don't chase success, it flows to you. You don't beg for peace, it emerges from you. You stop trying to bend the world to your will, and instead, you let your will align with the greater pattern. Most people live in reaction. Life throws something at them, and they flinch, respond, defend. They're locked in an endless loop of reaction because they don't know they can shape the very field they're reacting to. But as above, so below is the key that breaks that loop. It reminds you that every outer condition is the reflection of an inner vibration. It doesn't mean you're to blame for everything. It means you are no longer helpless in the face of anything. Hermes didn't teach escapism. He taught mastery, the kind of mastery that begins when you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this reflecting within me?" It's not always a comfortable path, because it holds a mirror up to every hidden fear, belief, and pattern we've inherited. But it's honest, and in its honesty, it sets you free. There's a reason this principle is the cornerstone of Hermetic philosophy. It collapses the illusion of victimhood. It reclaims your place in the universal order. It reminds you that you are not simply a product of your circumstances, you are a creator, whether you realize it or not. Every emotion you hold is a frequency, every thought is a wave, and every wave ripples outward into the matrix of reality, rearranging the pattern of your experience. This is the law, not a belief, not a metaphor, but a law. The teachings don't promise comfort, they promise clarity. They don't say everything will go your way. They say that with enough awareness, you can see why it doesn't. And with enough alignment, you can begin to shift it. This isn't magic, it's participation. It's what happens when a sleeping soul begins to stir, to question, to remember that the storm around them often began with the silence within them. To live this principle is to see your life as a dialogue, not a sentence. The universe isn't against you, it's in conversation with you. And it's been speaking your language all along. You just forgot how to listen. These teachings are your translation key. And once you remember how to read the signs, you stop asking if the universe supports you. and you start asking how clearly you're reflecting its truth. Real transformation doesn't happen in the surface layers of your life. It doesn't come from fixing your habits or rearranging your schedule or collecting more knowledge for your bookshelf. True transformation, the kind that rewires the fabric of your being, happens at the level of essence. And that's where Hermetic alchemy begins, not in laboratories or dusty scrolls, but in the crucible of your soul. When most people hear the word alchemy, they picture old mystics trying to turn lead into gold. But the Hermetic teachings were never about metal. They were about mind. The lead is your ignorance, your trauma, your fear, your inherited beliefs. The gold is your awakened self, not just aware, but embodied. Not just spiritual, but sovereign. Alchemy is the ancient technology of inner transmutation, using consciousness as the fire and intention as the vessel. You were never broken, but you've been layered in illusions, conditioned responses, emotional baggage that doesn't even belong to you. And the world teaches you to manage those things, to suppress them, or reframe them, or push them aside. But Hermetic alchemy demands something else. It asks you to burn them, to face the chaos head-on and extract clarity from it. This is not about escape, it's about confrontation, controlled demolition, the art of spiritual combustion. Every pain you've carried has encoded within it a lesson, a frequency, a key. And every time you bypass it, you delay your own unfolding. But when you sit with it, truly sit with it, you begin to change its nature. This is what the ancients called Gnosis, direct inner knowing that comes not from belief, but from experience. And once you taste Gnosis, you can never go back to sleep. The 35 Hermetic teachings are not passive ideas. They are tools of fire. Each one exposes a layer of illusion. Each one demands that you participate in your own purification. It's why this path isn't for everyone. Most people want comfort, but the alchemist wants truth. And truth is not always soft. It burns, it dismantles, but it also frees. The process doesn't happen all at once. It moves in cycles, just like nature, just like stars. You will spiral through the same wounds again and again, but with each turn you rise higher. Each descent into the self becomes a climb toward the divine. This is the paradox of transformation. You ascend by descending. You find the light by going into the dark, not to dwell in it, but to reclaim what was lost there. When you embrace the alchemy of the soul, you stop fearing discomfort. You understand that tension is just the stretching of your old self, making room for the new. You welcome the friction, because you know it means fire is at work. And where there is fire, there is transformation. You begin to see every struggle as an invitation, every trigger as a map, every collapse as sacred architecture breaking down to reveal your core. And here's the secret. This kind of power cannot be taken from you, because it's not based on status or possessions or external validation. It's born in the fire of inner knowing. It's etched into your vibration. Once you've transmuted pain into clarity, no one can use that pain to manipulate you again. You become unshakable. Not because life becomes easier, but because you become deeper. The teachings do not ask you to fix yourself. They ask you to face yourself, to enter the furnace willingly, to trust that there is something on the other side of the fire that is worth every scar, every surrender, every moment of letting go. That is the path of the alchemist. And it's not theoretical, it's embodied, it's lived, it's earned through Gnosis. So ask yourself not what you want to become, but what you're still clinging to that keeps you from becoming it. That is the lead. And within it, if you're willing to burn, you'll find the gold. The greatest illusion you've ever been sold is that you're alone, that you are a singular being, isolated in your mind, drifting through a universe that doesn't care. That illusion isn't just painful, it's strategic. Because when you believe you are separate, you forget your power. You forget your connection to the source, to others, to the field of intelligence pulsing through everything. And when you forget, you become manageable, contained, predictable. You accept the limits because you think they're natural, but they're not. The Hermetic teachings tear that illusion apart. They don't just suggest you're connected, they declare it. Everything is one, not in some vague spiritual metaphor, but in an exact and literal sense. All things are expressions of the same consciousness, the same source radiating through different forms. Your body, the stars, the rivers, the silence between your thoughts. It's all the same fabric. Distinctions are useful for navigating the world, but they are not the ultimate truth. This concept is not a theory. It's not something to debate over coffee. It's something you feel in the quiet moments when your mind slows down and your heart remembers. It's in the strange sense of knowing you've been here before, in the moments of déjà vu, in the way the wind seems to speak when you're finally still enough to listen. The teachings don't create this knowing, they awaken it. Separation creates fear. It makes the world look dangerous. It makes others look like threats. It makes the universe feel indifferent. And so you spend your life trying to protect yourself, prove yourself, find yourself, because you've been told you're alone in it. But when you see through that illusion, everything begins to shift. You realize the things you were running from were often reflections of your own unhealed fragments. The enemies you feared were teachers in disguise. The chaos you blamed on fate was often the echo of your inner disharmony. When you know you're not separate, something opens. Compassion stops being a virtue and starts being a default. You begin to recognize yourself in the eyes of strangers. You start treating your body like a temple, not because you're told to, but because you realize it's a temporary expression of the divine. You see life not as a competition, but a collaboration of consciousness, unfolding in infinite forms. This unity doesn't erase your individuality, it elevates it. Because when you understand that you are one with all things, your expression becomes sacred. Your thoughts, your voice, your creations, each becomes an offering to the whole. You stop copying and start creating. You stop performing and start embodying. You're not here to blend in. You're here to reflect the one in a way that only you can. The illusion of separation also keeps you from receiving. It tells you you're cut off from the source, that you need to earn love, prove your worth, seek permission. But connection was never something you had to achieve. It was something you had to remember. When you drop the illusion, the flow returns, intuition sharpens, synchronicities multiply. Peace, not as an emotion, but as a state of awareness, begins to take root. You move differently, not because you're trying to be spiritual, but because you remember you always were. In truth, you have never been alone. Every thought you've ever had has rippled into the field. Every longing has been heard. Every breakdown has been witnessed by the one that lives in all things. And not once have you been forgotten. The silence that surrounds you is not empty, it's listening. And now, after all the noise and conditioning, you're finally quiet enough to hear it again. The Corpus Hermeticum doesn't ask you to believe this. It invites you to experience it, to feel the reality of oneness in your bones, to walk through the world not seeking connection, but expressing it. Because once you see through the illusion of separation, there is no going back. You don't need permission to be whole. You already are. There is a kind of seeing that doesn't depend on your eyes, a knowing that doesn't come from logic, facts, or analysis. It's deeper, older, something that existed long before language. The Hermetic texts call it Nous. And if you've ever felt truth vibrate through your body before your mind could catch up, you've already touched it. Nous isn't the rational mind. It isn't your thoughts or the endless internal commentary trying to make sense of the world. That's intellect. Useful, yes, but limited. Nous is something else. It's the divine intellect, the part of you that perceives reality without filters. It doesn't guess. It doesn't infer. It simply knows. And in a world obsessed with proof and data, Nous is revolutionary, because it cannot be measured, only awakened. The system that shaped you trained you to trust only what can be seen, touched, or quantified. It glorified reason and dismissed intuition as unreliable. It pushed you into a state of constant thinking, looping, doubting, until you lost touch with the inner silence where Nous lives. But the Hermetic path leads you back to that silence. It doesn't ask you to kill the intellect, only to remember it's not the highest faculty. It's the servant, not the master. When Nous awakens, your perception shifts. Not gradually, but radically. You begin to see through things. People's words no longer matter as much. You feel their energy instead. Cultural narratives lose their grip. Social norms become transparent. You see the machinery behind the illusion, and more importantly, you see how you were complicit in it. Not from guilt, but from amnesia. But Nous doesn't judge. It simply reveals. There's a stillness in Nous, a weight, a kind of anchored presence that makes all distractions seem hollow. It doesn't flare up with emotion. It doesn't react. It doesn't need validation. And yet, when it speaks, its voice cuts through everything. It's how the mystics knew what they knew, not because they studied more, but because they remembered more. They let go of the noise long enough to hear the signal. Activating Nous isn't something you do with effort. It's something you allow. You create the conditions, stillness, honesty, humility, and then it rises. Sometimes in meditation, sometimes in crisis, sometimes in the quiet, between breaths. But when it comes, you'll know. It's unmistakable. It doesn't ask for your belief. It simply is. Like light through fog. Like clarity where there was once confusion. One of the 35 teachings reveals that Nous is the true interpreter of divine wisdom. Without it, you read the words but miss the meaning. With it, meaning blooms from every line, every sign, every silence. You stop looking for gurus because you found the eternal teacher within. You realize that wisdom was never something to chase. It was waiting patiently beneath the noise, under the programming, inside the stillness. There's a reason the modern world is allergic to silence. Because silence is where Nous wakes up. And once it does, it changes you. You stop consuming so much because you're no longer hungry for something outside. You stop chasing titles, arguments, validation, because you finally feel the presence of something real. And that presence isn't abstract, it's you. The real you, uncloaked by identity and belief. Nous doesn't shout, it whispers. But its whisper holds more weight than 1,000 opinions. It's what lets you navigate chaos with calm. It's what keeps your feet grounded when the world spins. It's what allows you to walk into uncertainty with a quiet confidence that has nothing to prove. Because it's not built on belief, it's built on knowing. And here's the secret most never realize. Nous is not rare. It's not reserved for mystics or masters. It's in you, right now. Maybe buried, maybe ignored, but always present. Waiting, watching, whispering. And when you finally pause long enough to listen, you'll understand what the Hermeticists have always known, that the most powerful vision doesn't come from your eyes. It comes from within. You've been taught to believe that the universe is a cold, mechanical accident, a vast expanse of empty space, random chance, and indifferent matter. That belief didn't just shrink your place in the cosmos, it severed your connection to it. It made you feel small, separate, insignificant. But the Hermetic teachings say something entirely different. They say the universe is not dead matter, it's living mind. And you're not just in it. You're a thought inside it. Everything you see, feel, and experience is happening within a conscious field of intelligence. This isn't a metaphor. It's not wishful mysticism. It's a metaphysical truth that predates modern science and yet echoes through the most cutting-edge quantum theories. The Hermeticists called it the All, the one mind behind all creation. A mind that isn't male or female, human or alien, personal or impersonal. It's simply being, pure awareness, self-reflecting, dreaming itself into form. And just as your thoughts exist within your mind, you exist within the universal mind. You are not an accident. You are not a mistake. You are not some random splash of biology. You are intention in motion, a fragment of divine awareness learning to remember itself through the game of forgetting. And once you realize this, the entire nature of your reality begins to shift. If the universe is mind, then everything is mental. Your experience, your reality, your emotions, they are not reactions to fixed events. They are projections shaped by belief, perception, and frequency. Your mind doesn't just process reality, it filters it. And when those filters are inherited, distorted, or conditioned, you mistake illusion for truth. But when you clean the lens, when you align with the deeper current of the one mind, you begin to see clearly. Not just the world, but your place in it. The teachings say that the all is infinite, but also intimately present. It's not out there somewhere unreachable. It's here, now beating in your chest, breathing through your lungs, thinking through your thoughts. You are both the experiencer and the experience. And that's not a riddle, it's reality. The Hermetic path isn't about escaping the material world. It's about understanding that the material world is spirit made visible. This understanding doesn't just change your philosophy, it changes your identity. You stop defining yourself by your history, your job, your body. You begin to know yourself as a point of consciousness in an infinite field of possibility. And when that happens, victimhood dissolves. You stop blaming the world and start co-creating with it. Not from ego, but from resonance. Not from fear, but from knowing that the source is never far, it's within. You also stop worshipping gods outside of yourself, not out of arrogance, but out of understanding. Because when you know the all, you stop looking for it in statues, institutions, or systems. You see it in the eyes of strangers, in the patterns of the wind, in the silence between your thoughts. You begin to understand that divinity is not above you. It is the very substance of your being. You are made of the same intelligence that holds galaxies together. And once you accept that, reverence becomes natural. This truth doesn't require belief. It only requires awareness. And that awareness can be cultivated through stillness, through meditation, through questioning the false and making space for the real, through remembering what you've always felt but never had words for, that life is not a machine. It is a living, breathing intelligence, and you are not just a part of it. You are an expression of it. The universal mind is not something you contact, it's something you realize. And when you do, the search ends. You stop trying to find meaning because you understand you are meaning, unfolding moment by moment. You stop seeking signs because you become the signal. You stop wondering if you're on the right path and start walking it with presence. Not because you know all the answers, but because you finally trust the intelligence that breathes through everything, including you. Before you can become who you truly are, who you were always meant to be, something has to die. Not your body, not your spirit, but the version of you that was built by the world, the persona shaped by fear, by survival, by conformity. That small self, the one that clings to certainty, that avoids discomfort, that seeks approval at the cost of truth. It can't come with you. And the Hermetic path doesn't sugarcoat this. It demands a death before it offers rebirth. Initiation isn't a ceremony. It's not candles, robes, or sacred chants. It's the moment you stop pretending. The moment you confront the story you've been living and finally ask, is this really who I am? Or is this who I was told to be? That question alone can break open your world. It can unravel identities you spent decades building. And that's exactly what it's meant to do. Because what's real doesn't fear the fire. Only illusion does. The ancient Hermeticists understood that the human soul is asleep by design, not as punishment but as part of the journey. You are born into forgetfulness so that remembering becomes sacred. But remembering isn't easy. It requires sacrifice, not of things, but of attachments. Attachments to who you think you are, what you think life should be, and how you think it should unfold. The ego fights this process. It will resist, it will scream, it will try to convince you that staying the same is safer. But that voice isn't your truth. It's the echo of the cage. Real initiation feels like destruction at first. The unraveling of belief systems, the collapse of roles you once identified with. Relationships may shift, careers may dissolve. Dreams you once chased may suddenly feel hollow. It's all part of the process. The shedding, the stripping, the sacred dismantling of the false so that the real can emerge. And through it all, the teachings remain. Not as doctrines to follow, but as guideposts to trust. This death is not a loss, it's a return. A return to essence, a return to simplicity, to silence, to sovereignty. You begin to realize that the chaos was never punishment. It was preparation. You weren't being broken down. You were being reshaped. Fire doesn't destroy the gold, it purifies it. And what remains after the fire is something unshakable. Not a perfect version of you, but a true one. The ego wants evolution to be linear, controlled, predictable. But awakening doesn't follow rules. It follows resonance. And resonance often leads you into the unknown, into the void. That space where nothing makes sense, where the old maps no longer apply. But if you stay long enough, if you breathe through the disorientation and trust the pull of something deeper, something begins to take shape. Not as something you build, but as something you uncover. You don't become awakened. You remember that you already were. The teachings don't make you powerful, they remove what blocked the power from flowing. The divine isn't added to you, it's revealed within you. And that revelation comes at the cost of everything you're not. That's the price, and it's worth it. So if you feel like your world is falling apart, if you feel like nothing makes sense anymore, if you're questioning everything, good. That's the initiation. That's the doorway. That's the fire. You're not broken, you're breaking open. And what emerges from that rupture is something sacred. A version of you that doesn't need approval, doesn't fear rejection, and doesn't shrink to fit into a world built on lies. You walk differently after the death of the false self. You don't chase power, you embody presence. You don't seek truth, you are it. Not perfectly, not without struggle, but honestly. And in this world, honesty is its own form of rebellion. This is the essence of the Hermetic path. To burn away illusion, to descend into your own depths, and to rise not as something new, but as something real. These teachings were never meant to be studied from a distance. They were meant to be lived. The 35 Hermetic principles are not a philosophy to admire, they're a path to walk. Each one is a seed, and unless it's planted in the soil of your daily life, it never grows into transformation. Reading the words is only the beginning. Embodying them is where the real work begins. Because wisdom without embodiment becomes performance. It looks good on the outside, but it doesn't change anything at the core. You can talk about divine mind, unity, alchemy, and nous all day long. But until it changes how you speak, how you move, how you treat others, and how you show up when no one is watching, it's still theory. The Hermetic path is a daily choice to live in alignment with something deeper, higher, more honest than the surface-level life most people are taught to accept. Each of the 35 teachings is an invitation to remember how to live as a divine being in human form. One calls you to speak only what resonates with truth. Another teaches you to master polarity and not be a slave to emotional extremes. One urges you to honor the principle of rhythm, recognizing that every high has its return and every low carries a lesson. And another whispers that every cause has an effect, and every choice you make ripples outward in ways you may never see. These aren't abstract concepts, they're the architecture of reality. Living them means watching how you react when you're triggered, how you respond when you're afraid, how you hold your ground when it would be easier to fold. It's in how you honor your word, how you protect your peace, how you bring presence to the mundane. You don't need incense and sacred chants to be on the path. You just need awareness, intention, and the courage to stay awake. You're not here to memorize doctrine. You're here to embody truth. That's the difference between someone who knows the teachings and someone who becomes them. The world is full of clever minds and empty hearts. But those who walk this path fully become a transmission. Their presence speaks louder than their words. Their energy shifts rooms without needing to explain why. And it's not because they're special, it's because they're aligned. True power doesn't shout, it resonates. And when you live the teachings, you begin to understand that you don't need to manipulate life, you just need to synchronize with it. When your inner world is in harmony, your outer world follows. People show up differently. Doors open without being forced. Synchronicities increase. You no longer hustle for control, you flow from clarity. That's the living path. Walking this path will challenge everything you've been taught to believe. It will confront the parts of you that want to play small, stay safe, avoid change. But it will also reveal a strength you didn't know was there, a clarity that doesn't waver, a peace that isn't dependent on circumstances. You stop outsourcing your truth and start embodying it. Fully, unapologetically, day by day. There is no final destination. The Hermetic path doesn't end in enlightenment, it is enlightenment, lived moment to moment. It's not about becoming untouchable, it's about becoming real, becoming rooted, remembering that power is not in perfection, but in presence. The world doesn't need more people talking about cosmic wisdom. It needs more people living it. And when you do, you become the proof, you become the mirror. And without saying a word, you invite others to remember too. The final teaching isn't really the final one, it's the return. The point where everything you've learned bends back toward the center. After all the wisdom, all the reflection, all the sacred disruption, you come face to face with the simplest, most powerful truth of them all. It was always you. You are the key. You've always been the key. Not to some external gate, but to the universe already humming inside you. The 35 Hermetic teachings don't hand you power. They clear away the fog that made you forget it. They peel back the layers of noise, conditioning, performance, and fear, and reveal what's been there the whole time. A direct line to source, not through dogma, not through someone else's permission, through presence, through remembrance, through the willingness to live from a deeper knowing and let the illusion fall away. That's the power the world tried to convince you didn't exist, because a person who remembers this cannot be controlled. They cannot be manipulated with fear. They don't chase status. They don't sacrifice their soul to fit a script that was never written for them. They move differently, speak differently, see differently, not from superiority, but from deep alignment. And the world feels it. Cosmic power isn't about commanding the universe. It's about becoming coherent with it. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions are in resonance with the one mind, you become a clear channel. Your presence alone begins to shift your environment. You speak less, but say more. You do less, but everything carries more weight. This is not mysticism for mysticism's sake. This is what happens when a being is no longer split within themselves. The greatest gift these teachings give you isn't knowledge, it's integration. They don't ask you to escape your life, abandon your responsibilities, or adopt some artificial spiritual persona. They ask you to return, to live fully, consciously, with your eyes open, your heart steady, and your spirit uncompromised, to see the divine in the everyday, to recognize yourself in all things, not as a metaphor, but as lived experience. The Hermetic path doesn't promise perfection, it promises presence. The kind of presence that doesn't disappear when things get hard, that doesn't vanish when emotions rise, that remains, watches, learns, and responds with awareness. This is the power that doesn't depend on outcome. It's not about what you achieve, it's about how you show up, consistently, authentically, with truth as your compass. So here you are at the end that is really a beginning. You've walked through mirrors, sat in fire, listened to silence, and remembered what most people forget, that the universe is not something you find, it's something you become. These 35 teachings are not just lessons, they're invitations, keys to open the door to a life lived in alignment with the divine, both within and without. A life you don't have to seek, because it's already waiting inside you. And if you're still not part of Insight's Academy, you're missing more than just content, you're missing the continuation of this path. It's free, and you'll receive the Kybalion as a digital gift to deepen your journey. Sign up at the link below. If this video resonated with you, let us know by commenting, "I understood it."